All right. So, it's our last part of the North American native population prior to the Europeans coming in. Okay. Our next chapter, we're going to be talking about the motivations, like why were people in Europe exploring? What motivated them to come to the New World or come to the Americas? Okay. But we've been moving. We started up north, way up north with which group of people?
The
Inuit. The ones that started way up north, clubbing baby seals.
Oh my!
Okay, and then we moved further south along the west coast, and now we're moving east, and we go to the Great Plains.
Okay, why did they fall off cliffs?
Huh? Like,
According to this picture, they herd the buffalo off a cliff.
yes, this is one of the ways that they would hunt buffalo later on, because again, horses, which did so we know that this happened after who arrived?
Columbus.
The Spaniards. Spain, because the Spaniards brought horses with them. Okay, but the plains would one of the ways that they would hunt is kind of lure the buffalo off the cliff, because I mean the buffalo is a 2,000-pound beast, right? And so it's hard to take down. But there were at this time, prior to Americans moving west into the Great Plains, there were millions of buffalo throughout the Great Plains. Millions of them. Then we exterminated them.
Extermination?
There's only a few left.
So the Plains people are really, I mean, there's not one tribe here. Okay? How many of y'all have heard of the Dakota?
Ooh.
Okay? What part of the Great Plains do you think the Dakotas lived in?
North Dakota, South Dakota.
North and South Dakotas, the Dakotas, yeah. So that central part, northern part of the Great Plains. How many of y'all have heard of the Sioux?
The what?
The Sioux.
S-U-E?
No, S-O-U-I-X.
I think I have, maybe.
The Sioux Native Americans, they were also part of the plains. They lived on the plain, the Great Plains area. Now, these people, so all these tribes that lived in the Great Plains, they tended to follow their food source. They would stay in an area for maybe a year, maybe a season, and then move on. Okay? So their structures were teepees. When you think plains, think teepees. Okay? Those are the two things that come together, teepees and plains, Great Plains. And what they would do is they would simply take these guys down and drag them behind them and carry them to their new location. Okay? The entire tribe would move as one. How many of y'all have seen the movie Dances with Wolves?
Oh no.
It's an older movie, but it's a classic. Okay? So David, you've seen Dances with Wolves. Those would have been Plains Indians, Plains Native Americans. Okay? But they tended to follow the buffalo. Right, buffalo they were really dependent on, which that was one of the reasons why the U.S. government went around and started killing the buffalo in the late 1800s. One, the railroads needed the land and they didn't want to run through buffalo. Two, it was a way to starve out the plains people.
Why didn't they eat the buffalo? They just leave their meat there.
Yeah,
It's
well,
like free food, right?
No, well, if you leave it out in the sun too long, it's free rotten food.
There's also this thing called
The
fire.
animals gonna start eating it though. Other animals.
Vultures would, but I mean, a lot of it would just rot out in the Great Plains. It was bad. Okay. So Eastern peoples. Now we're moving in, and there are two groups that we're going to look at. One in the Northeast, and then another in the Southeast. Okay. So the Northeast group, that would have been the Iroquois. That was the main tribe in the Northeast. Your book talks about some others, but the Iroquois were like the big guys in the Northeast. New York State area, okay, to get a picture of where they they lived. And what made the Iroquois notable, and why we're spending more time on them rather than not talking about the others, is that the Iroquois were essentially like 5 separate tribes that came together to form this kind of confederation. Okay, form this complex government. So, you know, when we hear some people talk about the Native Americans, especially in historical documents, as being savages, they're trying to dehumanize the natives. But really, the Iroquois, they had complex societal organizations. Okay, so this Iroquois League, this complex government that brought all tribes of the Iroquois into one type of government, they had their own constitution. It wasn't a written constitution; it was oral, but it was still a constitution. This constitution created the rules in which that created their Grand Council, which was essentially their legislative body. Okay, so they had a legislation there. Now, to get on the Grand Council, it was all men. Only men were allowed on the Grand Council. But to get on there, you had to have the support of the women of the tribe. Okay, because the women in each tribe would choose the clan mother. Okay, so all the women in that tribe would vote. They'd pick one representative to be their clan mother. And then the clan mothers would choose the male delegates that would go and become council members. Right? So if you weren't good with the women, you weren't going to get on the council. No leadership for you. Good. Food-wise, they were more permanent. Right? This is kind of a depiction of one of the kind of the tribe settlements that they would have, the tribe communities. Bunch of branches around for protection, right? Kind of a wooden wall around the community for protection, and then various homes and huts inside. Have any of y'all ever played Assassin's Creed? Okay. Have y'all played the one dealing with the American Revolutionary War period?
No, but I wanted to.
Like I think that's Assassin's Creed 3 or something.
No, I think that's like Assassin's Creed. No, I'm not sure.
Okay, well, if you were to watch film from that on YouTube, you'll see that this depicted because the plot of that video game takes place in this time period with the Iroquois. Okay, then moving further south, we go into the southeast. And this is going to be your Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida to some extent. Although we're not talking, the main group of Native Americans in Florida were the Seminoles, which Florida State, what's their mascot? Seminoles. That's why. Okay. But we're not talking about the Seminoles at this point.
And they got them.
Yeah. Okay, mainly we're here talking about the Creek, Cherokee, and Chickasaw. Okay, these are the group of people that will eventually march the Trail of Tears, where they're relocated from their homes in Georgia to anyone know what state they're relocated to?
Arizona.
Not yet, no.
No.
Texas.
Nope, just north of us though.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. They get relocated to Oklahoma. And that's because American farmers, particularly Andrew Jackson and the people around his supporters who were in the South, wanted the land because it was such rich soil. And so they wanted it to grow cash crops like tobacco and cotton, right? The love of what is the root of all evil?
Well,
The love of money.
Love of money. Well, money, yeah. It's the root of all evil. And it was the love of money that ends up forcing the that ends up getting the government, the U.S. government, to force the Creek, Cherokee, and Chickasaw off their land. March 2,400 miles to Oklahoma. Have close to 3,000 people die along this march for land on it. All right. But Their food, I mean, mainly farming, because the soil was so rich with nutrients. You have all these rivers going through the southeast, and these rivers are bringing in nutrients from upstream, downstream. And it's really, which is why cotton and tobacco made such a huge impact when American settlers started coming. And what ends up growing along with the American plantation? What practice ends up growing?
Slavery.
Slavery, right? And it's all for the love of money, right? So they would tend to live in semi-permanent structures made of wood because they were such a farming community, right? And that's it. We're done.
We did it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for the quiz, y'all can use these slides because people want, yeah, it's open note.